You're listening to international investment advisor Doug Goldstein on the Goldstein on Gelt show, the financial show where we'll talk about how you can make the most of your money. With all the confusing financial chatter bombarding you each and every day, Goldstein on Gelt will give you the practical information you want and need about living a financially stable life. Here's your host, money maven Doug Goldstein.
Okay, we are back. We are talking to Scott Kim. Scott's been designing puzzles full-time for over 20 years. His work includes puzzles for magazines like Psychology Today and the science magazine Discover. He's also contributed puzzles to computer games like Bejeweled and Tetris, as well as educational toys like Railroad Rush Hour. Scott, it's a pleasure to have you.
All right, thanks. Glad to be here.
You know, I'm excited to have a puzzler on the show, so maybe you could take a minute, just tell us, how did you get started in the puzzle business?
Let's see. When I was a kid, I was always interested in art and technology. I was looking for things that combine the two. Originally it was math and music. Later it was graphic design and computer science. Like a lot of kids, I did play puzzles. I read through puzzle books, but I was pretty avid about the books. And what really interested me in puzzle books was not just figuring out the answer. It was the insights it gave into how you thought. I was really interested in puzzles that where you had to be really creative and shift how you thought. And I wasn't able to always solve those puzzles, but I'd flip to the end, look at the answers, and go, "Wow, that's really cool. I want to do that." So that got me started.
So a lot of times you look at puzzles. In fact, I remember when I was a kid, we used to have a book around the house. It was called Games for the Super Intelligent.
Right.
And quite frankly, I couldn't always get them, and it made me feel that maybe there was something wrong with me. If someone can't solve a puzzle, is that a sign that maybe he's really not super intelligent?
Well, yeah, when I meet people at parties, it's kind of an intimidating profession. It's just like, well, I don't know, you're not going to ask me something I can't answer. But I figure if you can't do one of my puzzles, I've failed, not you. So they're supposed to be challenging, yes, but they need to be fun. And if it's too hard, it's not fun. So in fact, I always say blame the puzzle designer.
Right. I've heard you say that puzzles are supposed to be fun to solve, and they have a correct answer.
Right.
As opposed to real life.
Yes, exactly. Like finding a parking place, not a well-designed puzzle. You don't know how long it's going to take. You're under pressure. It's not fun.
Yeah, tell me about it. That's like the life of an investment advisor. My day job is that I work as a financial planner. I have this great once-a-week gig where I get to talk to interesting guests like you on the radio. So, unfortunately, in the world of finance, I run into a lot of puzzles that are a little tricky to solve. But do you think that people who do a lot of puzzles actually learn to become better problem solvers?
I would like to think so. I don't know exactly how true it is. But I think it works the other way around. Certainly, if you like solving puzzles in the world, you're going to like puzzles as well. And sometimes puzzles serve as little Zen koans or little fables to remember certain strategies for solving puzzles.
I gotcha. Do you think that that the world of a professional puzzle designer is a little different from the world that the rest of us live in?
Well, it certainly means that I'm always looking for puzzles, just like a writer might always be looking for stories, or an artist might be always looking for or a photographer might be looking for interesting scenes.
What makes a good puzzle?
Well, like you said, it needs to be fun to solve, so not too hard, not too easy. For me, the really key thing, there's two ends of puzzle design. There's like jigsaw puzzles that are a lot of little steps. It's like climbing slowly up a mountain. A lot of little aha moments along the way, but it's mostly a slow climb. The other end is what I'm aiming at, which is puzzles that where you have a really major insight and it leaves you with something. Like a good movie, it's not just entertaining; it leaves you with something to think about. So that's what I'm really after. At the end of a puzzle, one of my best puzzles. I think you see the world a little differently.
So you are very involved in a type of puzzle called an ambigram. What are ambigrams?
Right. Ambigrams are words written so they can be read in more than one way. And that sounds a lot like palindromes, words that spelled the same forward and backward, like level or noon, N-O-O-N. So they're like palindromes, except they look the same right side up and upside down. So like the word noon spelled in capital letters, that's the English word, not the not the Hebrew letter. N-O-O-N is the same upside down because N's the same upside down. So and it's a palindrome. Uh-huh. So I had seen those as a kid, but somewhere in college I got the bug to try doing other words, and I found that with some persistence and working at it, I could take virtually any word and turn it into an ambigram. And so developed that as an art form ever since. I was one of the first guys to really turn that into an art form.
So that's a piece of art, meaning you can't just flip any word over and get the same word upside down. You have to somehow play with the letters.
Right. You have to distort the letters, and the trick here is to distort them enough so that they're the same both ways, but they can still be read.
I got you. So, it's a little bit hard to describe on the radio, but maybe we'll put something up. We'll put something up on the website so people can see it. We're talking to Scott Kim, who's a professional puzzle designer. Among other things, he recently co-authored a book called The Playful Brain, along with neuroscientist Richard Restak, and. That's right. And he's a graphic designer and specializing in ambigrams. And we were just talking about that a second ago. I'd like to ask, have you done them in other languages as well? For example, Hebrew.
Sure. Some of my friends have kids are having bat mitzvahs. One thing I like doing there, I adapt what an ambigram is to the situation, is write their name in English, but within the English, some of those letters also form the name in Hebrew, of course, reading right to left. So each letter, those letters have to do double duty as both in English and in Hebrew. Since I'm not expert in Hebrew, that's the harder one for me.
Boy, that's a real puzzler's nightmare, going left to right and right to left at the same time.
Now, I have to ask, I've heard there are signs, some people in Israel do this already, like it'd be really nice to have a bilingual sign where you don't have to have two words. I've never seen one.
What a great idea. I've never seen one either.
Oh, anyway. I would love to see them.
That'd be fabulous. I know one of the problems with people who aren't so familiar with the language. I have a friend who owns a website here called dictionary.co.il. It's the English Hebrew dictionary. Co.il is the Israeli end for all websites. And he got an email from someone who had gotten a tattoo in Hebrew, and she said, I took a photograph of my tattoo because I just want to make sure that that it says everything okay. And it turned out that the tattoo artist didn't know left to right and right to left, and had actually written the Hebrew words upside down, or had written them backwards, and which was terrible. The world of puzzling, apart from just being a game, there's a whole industry involved in it. In fact, from what I understand, it's grown to be a very, very big industry. Do you see this as something that's growing?
Absolutely. Games in general, and you'll read it all over the news, the game industry's gotten huge. It's, at this point, as big or bigger than the film industry, and only going to get bigger. I know when I was a kid, movies were exciting. Now for kids, of course, it's games. I don't even have to say that. And even more than that, though, at this point with mobile phones, games are reaching everybody, not just people who think of themselves as gamers. It's a very mass medium.
And what about in terms of business games, right? This is deep down, this is a financial planning show.
Sure.
How can people use the puzzle metaphor or working on puzzles to improve their decision-making or their business decision-making?
Puzzles are sort of a light form of mental exercise. I wouldn't say that they're going to automatically make you a better financial planner, but they can certainly keep your mind active. A lot of people play crossword puzzles or Sudoku just to sort of feel like they're doing something good for their brain. To get really specific about I would say that there's certain puzzles, like there's a really famous one. It's hard to describe, of course, without seeing it. It's called the 9 dots. There's 9 dots in a 3x3 matrix. You're supposed to connect them all with four lines without lifting your pencil. It's one of the 4 straight lines. That is. It's one of the most famous aha puzzles. In order to, I'll give it away. There's a spoiler here. In order to solve it, most people, when they see it, they imagine something that's not in the puzzle, which is that they have to stay within the bounds of those 9 dots, and the solution requires going outside of those 9 dots. Mm-hmm. You have to draw a line that goes beyond and comes back in. Walt Disney was very fond of that puzzle, and he would give it to everybody in the company. And it became really a metaphor for literally thinking outside the box. Think of something that goes beyond what you think, and don't watch out for your own mental limitations or the things you assume that aren't true. So they become ways to remember strategies for thinking.
Mm-hmm. I think that's important. I think we tell clients a lot, sometimes you just have to think out of the box, which is exactly, it is this metaphor in real life, which is, whether you're talking to someone about budgeting or about realizing that sometimes he has to go a little bit beyond his comfort level. He's got to go beyond what he's normally going to think about in order to either make a more difficult investment decision or budgeting decision or business decision. One of the other benefits, I think, of doing puzzles and thinking is that they talk about there are certain cognitive benefits. The studies seem to go back and forth, but have you seen anything that's definitive that says that if you do more puzzles or play more Sudoku, then you're going to push off the effects of either dementia or Alzheimer's?
Yeah, well, I worked recently with Lumosity.com, which has online brain games, and they're all about the science. And I came in there saying, we got to do puzzles. And they actually pushed back, and I looked at the literature. The literature at this point isn't terribly supportive of crosswords and Sudoku showing measurable benefits for your brain. There's a couple footnotes to that, though. One is that it hasn't been studied very much. Mm-hmm. But I think what's really valid is that playing a crossword puzzle is kind of like it feels challenging, but it's not something where you're working at it every moment. It wasn't designed as brain exercise. It's like a leisurely walk in the park is in some sense good for your body, but it's not going to the gym and doing a targeted exercise that's really after a particular muscle. So the sorts of games, there are puzzles on Lumosity.com, but they're really tuned to, so the positive answer is yes, there are certain puzzles that are very good for your brain. There are definitive studies that show that they do great. Especially puzzles. There's a puzzle called the NBAC. It's more like a game, and it's great for your memory.
And there have been some sort of studies that I guess you're right. It's difficult to prove it, but that have demonstrated that people who, of the 1,000 people they studied, those who played these games had less negative effects from dementia and Alzheimer's than people who didn't play the games.
Yeah. There's some evidence around warding off dementia. In this case, they were looking more at positive health benefits. So people started scoring much better on all sorts of tests of general intelligence, not just of memory, and the effects were very long-lasting. They would last for months.
Wow. Okay, we have been talking with Scott Kim, who is a professional puzzler. He was called by science fiction author Isaac Asimov the Escher of the alphabet, because he's very creative with making puzzles as well as ambigrams. Scott, in the last few seconds, could you just tell people how could they learn more about your work?
Check out my website, scottkim.com. You can also check out theplayfulbrain.com, which talks about my book. Those are the main places, and it's been a pleasure to be on your show.
Okay, thanks very much.
You've been listening to the Goldstein on Gelt show with money maven Doug Goldstein. Doug's weekly radio show is heard around the world, but if you miss it, you can download the podcast at www.goldsteinongelt.com. The Goldstein on Gelt show gives you up-to-date financial ideas so you can get on the path to financial freedom. If you'd like your questions answered on the air or off, send Doug an email to doug@profile-financial.com. It's your money for your future, so join Doug every week to build your wealth on the Goldstein on Gelt show.